Hello and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's Wednesday Interlude, in which I discuss my reading progress of the books I've been reading since last Wednesday, and in which I turn the spotlight on the life and verse of Robert William Service. But before that, I can confirm that I completed my reading of the second 20 chapters in Steve's read-along challenge of Phineas Redux, the fourth book in the parliamentary novels by Anthony Trollope. The highlight of this section is the way Madame Max responds to the Duke of Omnium's offer of making her a duchess on his deathbed, and of having been left a huge sum of money and a large collection of jewellery by the old Duke, who dies in this section, and the way Plantagenet and Glencora react to her, and the way the old Duke's dying has a profound effect upon them. There is some comic relief in a subplot involving Adelaide Palliser and her suitors, and an episode in which Phineas Finn is almost murdered and libelled. But rather than rehashing what Steve has already said, I've provided a link to Steve's review of this section below. This week I evaluated The Illumination of Ursula Flight by Anna Marie Crowhurst, The Gnome World by Edward P. Jones, and The Psychopath Test by John Ronson for my forthcoming Sunday morning meetup, the Try a Chapter tag. So I won't say anything about them now, as I will be discussing them in that video. So be sure to ring the notifications bell if you want to learn what my reactions were to those three books. Now let us turn the spotlight on the life and verse of Robert William Service. One of the reasons I love Robert William Service is because, like me, he had a never-ending sense of humour, a sane philosophy of life, and was a perfectionist in his work. Iris Service Davies, the daughter of Robert, wrote in the foreword to On the Trail of Robert Service by G.W. Lockhart that the poem Each Day a Life expressed exactly how he felt about life. Service wrote, I count each day a little life, with birth and death complete. I cloister it from care and strife, and keep it sane and sweet. With eager eyes I greet the morn, exultant as a boy, knowing that I am newly born to wonder and to joy. And when the sunset's splendours wane and ripe for rest am I, knowing that I will live again, exultantly I die. Oh, that all life were but a day, sunny and sweet and sane, and that at even, I might say, I sleep to wake again. Iris said that her father would correct his work until he was perfectly satisfied with every word and nuance. That is why his verse was so enormously popular during his lifetime and turned him into that most unusual of poets, a millionaire. Robert Service is most notably associated with the Yukon in Canada during the Klondike Gold Rush. The Klondike Gold Rush was a migration by an estimated 100,000 prospectors to the Klondike region of the Yukon in northwestern Canada between 1896 and 1899. Gold was discovered there by local miners on August 16, 1896, and when news reached Seattle and San Francisco the following year, it triggered a stampede of prospectors. Some became wealthy, but the majority went in vain. Robert Service arrived in Canada from Scotland in 1896 and spent 7 years as a West Coast vagabond, wandering from British Columbia to California and Mexico, doing odd jobs to sustain himself. Back in British Columbia, he worked on Vancouver Island as a cowhand and a country store clerk, before getting a job in Victoria with the Bank of Commerce, which eventually led to a posting at the Whitehorse branch in the Yukon. There, in 1906, the publication of Songs of a Sourdough made him an overnight sensation and lifted him from poverty to riches. Some of Service's most famous poetry comes from that collection. For example, the one I read last Sunday, The Law of the Yukon, which you will find in the info card above. And the shooting of Dan McGrew and the cremation of Sam McGee, among others. Although Service spent a very short time in the Yukon, he is remembered there still because his cabin in Dawson has become a tourist shrine, and there is a plaque bearing his name outside his old bank. In 1912, Robert left the Yukon and settled in France, where he married Germaine Burgoyne. He became a Red Cross ambulance driver during World War I and wrote Rhymes of a Red Cross Man, acclaimed by some as the best poetry of the war. Robert W. Service was born on the 16th of January 1874 in Preston in Lancashire of Scottish parents. When Robert was 5 years old, he was sent to live with his paternal grandfather and 3 maiden aunts in the Ayrshire town of Kilwinning. And as is traditional for such a famous man, his residence in that town between 1879 and 1883 is commemorated with a plaque on the house where he lived. The plaque states that he composed his first poem here on his 6th birthday. Service lived to be 84 years old, having written 1,000 poems and 6 novels, and having earned over $1 million from his writings. He died on the 11th of September 1958. As a youth, Service often portrayed himself as a misfit and a failure, but he eventually achieved the freedom to write, as well as a lifelong love and great happiness, and he remained young at heart all the days of his life. I have only been able to touch briefly on some of the highlights of Robert Service's life, so if you want to know more about his adventurous life, then I can recommend the biography I mentioned earlier, which I've dropped on the floor, On the Trail of Robert Service by G.W. Lockhart, and Under the Spell of the Yukon by Enid Mallory. And if you want to explore Service's verse, then there is a collected verse of Robert Service which contains 5 of his collections, namely Songs of a Sourdough, Ballads of a Chichako, Rhymes of a Rolling Stone, The Rhymes of a Red Cross Man, and The Ballads of a Bohemian. Other books of verse by Service include Rhymes of a Roughneck and Songs of a Sun Lover, and Barroom Ballads, which I don't have. Now I'm going to read a short poem from Songs of a Sourdough, which expresses how Service thought of himself at the age of 32, before he became rich and famous and an immensely successful author. He wrote, "There's a race of men that don't fit in, a race that can't sit still. So they break the hearts of kith and kin, and they roam the world at will. They range the field and they rove the flood, and they climb the mountain's crest. Theirs is the curse of the gypsy blood, and they don't know how to rest. If they just went straight, they might go far. They are strong and brave and true, but they're always tired of the things that are, and they want the strange and new. They say, could I find my proper groove, what a deep mark I would make. So they chop and change, and each fresh move is only a fresh mistake. And each forgets as he strips and runs with a brilliant fitful pace. It's the steady, quiet, plodding ones who win in the lifelong race. And each forgets that his youth has fled, forgets that his prime is past, till he stands one day with a hope that's dead in the glare of the truth at last. He has failed, he has missed his chance, he has just done things by half. Life's been a jolly good joke on him, and now is the time to laugh. Ha ha, he's one of the legion lost. He was never meant to win. He's a rolling stone, and he's bred in the bone. He's a man who won't fit in." Let me know in the comments below if after hearing these extracts you're not tempted to try reading some of Service's verse. If you are, I've put some links to free resources in the show notes below. There are 3 ebooks and 2 recordings for you to enjoy. So that's all folks, and remember to comment, subscribe, like and share, and I'll be back soon with another BookTube video.